On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk invisible speakers, CEDIA's new executive committee, and guardDog cybersecurity. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 313, Get Rid of Clutter.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
At Lona, the go-to provider for AV signal distribution and control in corporate, higher education, and residential spaces.
Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv, and this week I'm pleased to be joined by two of my longtime friends. First, we have Katie McGregor Bennett. She's the president of KMB Communications. How you doing, Katie?
Doing well. You know, it's funny, when you did your intro, it almost sounded like you're Maddie Scott.
Maddie Scott? No, Matt
to go
D.
along,
Scott.
To go along with Katie, and then to go along with Mosey. Yeah. So
there's a very, very incredibly short list of people that keep their teeth when they call me Maddie.
Yeah.
It's really short.
I know.
It
That's
doesn't
why
go well.
I kind of got hung up there for a second. Anyways, on with your intro.
And it's not because I do anything. It's because their dentists look at them and go, "Wow, your teeth are terrible." All right, don't make assumptions. It's not what's going down. The Mosey that she referred to is Mosey Levy. He's the senior nerd at Backstage AV. How you doing, Mosey?
Good. Thanks for having me, Maddie. Appreciate it.
Shut up. You starting like this already?
How's my teeth?
Your teeth are great. Just wait till I see you next. Oh, goodness. I'll give you a hug. That's why.
Awesome.
Right? Yeah, it's been too long. All right, let's kick this off with a story that comes to us from CE Pro. Top 5 tech of 2020. New technologies are tackling invisible sound. The latest in transducers can be used to generate invisible sound just about anywhere in a home or commercial application. I refuse to use resimercial. Sorry, Bob. Well, a new era of unique speakers adds enticing ways to conceal audio. If you have hopped around Instagram or anything else, you will have seen videos of again, invisible speakers being installed. There's a litany of designs from people like MSE, Stealth, JBL's got a really cool new one. Sonance has some, Amina. There's a bunch of companies that are doing it these days. Katie, when you see this, when you read through the article and look at those options for invisible speakers, I get it. Designers love them. As a rule, they love them. Integrators kind of have a mixed bag of feelings on them. Some go back to the really old transducers that you'd like glue on to drywall and use the whole wall as your speaker. But the new ones and the lines that are out there where, again, you're putting it behind the drywall. You're putting a box in just like you would a normal speaker, except you're drywalling over top of it. Those are doing pretty well. They look good. They sound good. Is this us pushing a design aesthetic that we think interior designers and homeowners might like better than the traditional speaker? Or is this the industry responding to a request, if you will, from designers to hide these things better?
I think it's probably somewhere in the middle. I think that these things, to your point, they've been around for a while. And in the list of brands, I didn't hear Pizza Hut, but there was this April Fool's thing a while back about the Pizza Hut was coming out with a speaker line, and and so I think unfortunately there's just sort of this bad memory of what the transducer based versions of these are that none of us really want any part of. But to answer the question is, I think we're accommodating a need to make tech less present in a room, and are we going to be able to maintain the most amazing sound in every application when we do that? No. But is it an option for those that really don't want to see it in any way? Sure. I see these as opportunities to accommodate an interest that may not necessarily be the primary interest of the integrator, but an interest in the consumer and the homeowner. And from where I sit, the more that we can do that in a way that makes sense for our businesses, we're continuing to allow our industry to grow. If we continue to dig in our feet and say, no, that's just nothing we want any part of, then our industry kind of just naturally will continue to shrink. And to me, that's not the way we want to go. So not ideal in all applications, but I get it, I understand it, and I do think it does accommodate a certain need. It's just like anything else. Is it right for the application? If not, move on to something better,
Speaking of the application side of things, Mosey, how do you approach this? Do you go into every client meeting, every pitch with the concept of, hey, we're going to work and do our best to hide literally everything, not letting you see even the TV on the wall because we're going to put a frame in so it looks like art? Or is this one of those things where if the homeowner or the designer or whoever you're working with is adamant that they want to see everything hidden, that you pitch this, is this something that you would pitch on the normal? Or is this just that special application when pushed?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny because the majority of our business is lighting systems, and part of that sale is hiding clutter on the wall. And that goes along with a lot of automation, like getting rid of thermostats on the wall and just having sensors, and getting rid of alarm panels and just getting rid of clutter. That's like a huge word for us, but we do not concentrate on invisible speakers at all. We've sold them, I think we've sold maybe 30 of them over the past 5 years. The first few we put in were scary. So, as an integrator, it's got to be scary for the first time you do it, no matter what, because it's kind of, if you screw it up, it's bad. And the first ones we put in, they didn't sound great, and that was probably our fault, learning experience. But then we started using Nakimatone, which we've had a really good experience with, and they're great. When people ask me about them, the first thing I say is audio your priority here, or is it hiding it? And if you're okay with decent background audio, then yeah, invisibles will be fine. It shouldn't be used in a TV room. And so in those scenarios, they worked well. And the Nakimatones, even with heavy mud in front of them and everything, they work great. But they're not something we push. We mention it occasionally if we think it might be a good fit. They're really expensive, and that budget can go to other things that make more sense. It's not giving me any added functionality on top of a regular set of speakers, and a regular set of in-ceiling speakers really aren't that obtrusive. We're actually working on a project now where the designer requested small aperture speakers, which are this giant back box in the ceiling, and then this little 3-inch grill. And so those are similar in price to the invisibles, but I think that I'm going to have more confidence in them because they're not relying on some sort of muffled technology. And then another example is today I was working on a quote for a project, and it's a spec home, and they're trying to get the budget to $70,000, and the real estate agent for some reason has a ton of input on where they should go with their system. And the real estate agent tells them, well, we should do mesh network and mesh lighting instead of centralized lighting instead of a real network. I'm like, guys, you're hiring me for my opinion. Don't do that. That's crazy. So they're like, okay, fine. We're going to follow your opinion. What can we do to get the price down? I said, well, the invisible speakers that the real estate agent really wants to put in there, they're $5,000. And I don't think it's going to make your home that much more attractive. I don't think it's going to sell your home more than a lighting system would or something else would. So while I'm not against them and I do put them in when called for, we don't push them.
Is that not the biggest pushback against this, though? Like, if you're sitting down and having that discovery meeting, and the designer's got a budget to work with, right? And when they get very excited over invisible speakers because they don't want to see something, at what point does it become this push-pull over, okay, so we can do like $200, $400 repair in ceilings plus install, yada, 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 versus these, significantly thousands of dollars into a invisible speaker system? At what point does the designer, I don't want to say give in, but look at the dollars and cents side and go, okay, I'd rather not lose, to your point, Mosey, $5,000 in design budget over some speakers that are probably $1,000 at most, with a really good quality in ceiling.
Yeah, so my thought is that whenever something like invisible speakers go into a project, that the homeowner has to accept that their budget is now growing. It should absolutely not take away from any existing system design going in there.
Matt, I was having a conversation with someone in the industry last week, and they said, I was sitting in a presentation a few years ago, and I heard something I've never heard before, haven't heard since, but I've never forgotten, which is how do you want your sound to look?
Mm-hmm.
And, when talking to a homeowner when doing that discovery, I think if you ask that question, the answer it creates a very simple decision tree beyond that either puts these into that category or not. If the answer is, I don't want to see my sound whatsoever, any way, shape, form, or manner, okay, then maybe we need to introduce this. But Matt, to your point, they will come at a cost. And I think that it's how everybody gets paid in the equation. That's a bigger, it's a bigger conversation, but it plays directly into this. Are you taking from the design budget? Are you adding to it by adding better enhanced products that should then add to that design budget? It's a bigger conversation than today, but.
Yeah, it's always interesting to have that conversation about what design costs and how to achieve the desired design with whatever budget you have, which is never enough. We know that. It's never enough.
It matters a lot more when it comes to outdoor audio or places where it's difficult to fit a speaker in to make it look good.
Yeah.
A ceiling speaker it's not a problem unless you make it a problem, where there are other scenarios where you really have to figure out what it's going to look like.
I very rarely, to your point, Mosey, I very rarely walked into a place, and I'm always looking for tech. It's so rare that you walk into a home and go, oh my gosh, those ceiling speakers are disgusting,
right.
Unless they're yellow because they're 20 years old.
Right.
But typically with today's, micro perfs and everything else, they just fade away. I don't understand the problem.
Right.
But maybe it's me. Don't answer. Katie, come on. All right. This next story comes to us from, I needed a laugh this week, which is why I'm making jokes about me. I needed to talk about this from Residential Systems. CEDIA's board of directors has appointed the 2022 executive committee. A good friend of mine and a good friend of the show, David Weinstein from Lutron, has been named the new chair, along with Jamie Briesmeister, who's also a good friend of the show out of St. Louis, Michael Sherman, who I know from France, and Henri out there, Alex Capisolantro from Josh AI, again, a good friend of the show, and Rob Sutherland, who has repeatedly denied my request to come on the show. But now that you're no longer chair, you have no excuse. He is now going to be the past chair, and I expect to have him on the show at some point very soon. Rob, I know you're probably going to listen to this, so now you get to know. Mosey, actually, Katie, sorry, I'm going to come back and start with you on this one before we get to Mosey on this one. The new board is a good thing. I like the makeup of it. I like the fit of it. They have a lot to do and to work on from the exec side, but we cannot forget that CEDIA just hired a new CEO. And as important as the new exec is, I think their most important role right now for the foreseeable future is helping Daryl succeed in his new role as CEO. Am I overstating that or oversimplifying that?
No. I don't think so. I think, there's these announcements are always kind of calendarized, right? So there's the order of things, but I think that it will be very easy to overshadow Daryl being here, and new in the role. And I do hope, personally, I do hope that there's a lot more conversation about him with him. I'd like to hear more from him. I'd like to see him a lot more, just based on historical. I think that that's where the organization becomes one that you want to embrace and one that you want to be part of and the one that you appreciate your investment in. And, I think we're still, just from a kind of common community standpoint, unfortunately, I'm still hearing kind of what has CEDIA done for me lately, and a question about, is my membership worth it? And, I do think that's a sad truth. So back to the original point of the conversations, I'm stoked with the new executive committee and really happy to see the names and faces that are on there. You definitely, some of those are very close friends and some I don't know that well, but I think, it's a good cross section of the community. And that should be celebrated. Absolutely. I just would really like to see kind of I'd like to see both sort of rise to the occasion and properly support the community at large. And, to your point, it really, we need to see the organization itself and the C-suite be very present. I think that's important.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Mosey, and typically I would have gone to you first, but I wanted to get that answer before I come to you with this one.
He knows I'm going to be gentle.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. Your question was specifically about the board or the exec, and Mosey, I wanted to ask you more of a general question of, again, there's. Let me rephrase that for a second. The exec changes every 2 years. We know this is happening, to Katie's point, but with some new people coming in, some new blood coming in on exec, and obviously a new CEO coming in, CEDIA's got a lot of new faces going on right now. What does the association have to do to prove its value to a company like yours? Right, you work in New York, in the tri-state area. You guys are well established. You got your stuff together. It's not like you necessarily, are sending the principals off to learn how to pull cable, right? You guys are established. You know what you're doing. What does CEDIA have to do to continue to prove value and relevancy to a company like yours?
That's a tough question because not in a negative way, but I've never seen value in CEDIA besides the trade show. And it's mostly because I don't know enough about it and what they offer. I did notice that at every trade show they offer training, which I don't think I've ever taken a class. And I'm not sure what else they do besides that. I'm sure they support our large community somehow. But, we started out as a small company. We still are small, but we started out knowing a lot less 10 plus years ago, 15 years ago. And it wasn't CEDIA that helped us, and maybe that's my own fault for not looking more into it. But it was really my peers in the industry that helped us grow, and forums and just talking to people. So, besides loving going to the trade show, really enjoying that, really enjoying seeing everyone and learning that part of it, I don't know what else CEDIA could offer us.
Katie, let me ask you a follow-up to that then. Given what Mosey said, right, that he doesn't fully get why, not to put words in your mouth, man, but he doesn't fully get what they're there for to help him, right? From a marketing standpoint, like, and I've been on the board, I've been in those strategy meetings. I know, I'm aware of what they've tried to do to some extent, but the fact that it's still to somebody like Mosey, who's been in for 10, 15 years, it obviously hasn't resonated with him, and his story is not at all unique, right? I heard the other day that something like less than 10% of the quote unquote community are members, right? Of low voltage installers and integrators. That's a really, really small number. How do they go about marketing to that community?
That is that.
And for our next story.
Yeah, that's the $1 million proposal question right there.
Can I interrupt? I'm so sorry. What do they offer? What don't I know that they could help with?
So the big stuff is obviously education, government affairs is a huge thing that's under-respected, I'm going to say, as far as every time a state legislator or a federal legislator comes out and tries to, make low voltage PoE wiring the sole domain of electricians. CEDIA is one of the lead organizations fighting that, right? All of that kind of stuff is huge. We talked about training, we talked about certifications, obviously trade show stuff, community stuff. That's kind of the gist of what the association does. And again, not a spokesperson, but been around it for a minute. But I think the desire is to be the go-to place where if you're bringing somebody on board, you're going to run them through CEDIA certifications and trainings so that they get a general knowledge of everything going on, right? And how the industry is expected to run and work. And then you can supersede that or specify beyond that with manufacturer-specific training. And maybe I'm overstepping and I'll get a call from somebody in Indiana later about it. But, to a degree that's kind of how I've always perceived it, right? They're fighting to allow us to do our jobs better and continue to do our jobs better. The hard thing is that, you know, there's a lot of competition for training. There's a lot of competition for certifications. And that gets into a much bigger conversation, which I don't want to do. But it's a tough one to prove value, right? And I don't know what the magic marketing bullet is to get that message across.
I think one of the big challenges is that, you know, and again, I don't work for them, and I don't have all of the membership benefits, and that's not what we're here to talk about today, anyways. But you know, I think that there are benefits to the business and therefore the business owner more so than the employees of a particular business. So, you know, I think part of it is just that our community is made up not only of the principal partner or, you know, the principal of a firm, but, you know, that firm and all of its employees, who many of the benefits really don't, on a day-to-day basis, don't apply to. Their certifications, yes, 100%, absolutely. But, you know, some of the health insurance benefits, you know, the Propel program, you know, those types of things that are, you know, they're available, but, you know, at the technician level, they're not really going to realize that. So what has CEDIA done for me lately for that person? They may not answer that question in any other way than, you know, I don't really know. But, you know, as a business owner and a small business owner who needs help with those kind of resources, just, you know, day-to-day ops, biz ops kinds of stuff, there are membership advantages and benefits there that I think, you know, many do take advantage of. But, you know, what percentage of our community is that, you know, and I suspect that's probably fairly small as well. But, you know, honestly, I think the bigger challenge is just in educating and inspiring the industry and our community and wanting to be part of it and helping the thing grow, you know, and having sold the trade show, that's kind of a challenge because, you know, a lot of people, to Moises' point earlier, is they don't own the show anymore, right? So the value of the membership isn't in the trade show at all, right?
They sold the trade show?
They did.
What does that mean?
I love you, buddy. That was a couple years ago.
Wow. I told you.
He lost a couple years with COVID, guys. Leave him alone.
How do you sell a trade show? What does that even mean?
They sold it to Emerald Expositions out of Chicago, who now run that show. So there's still a partnership thingamajigger. They still offer education, but the show is run by Emerald. That's all. Yeah. So from a attendee standpoint, nothing really changed. Just who you get emails from differs. That's all. All right, let's change topics for a second because I want to get into this one before we let you guys go. This comes to us from Resi Tech today. Cybersecurity brand guardDog.ai has been added to the CEDIA Propel Partner Program. One of those benefits Katie just talked about in my best pitch voice possible. GuardDog uses AI-driven network overlay tech to find and protect attempted cyber attacks in less than 2 milliseconds. So through this, you can sign up to get GuardDog through Propel, and you should get some discounts and some other cool things. Mosey, this has been a continual topic across the channel for years now. The threat of cybersecurity and how to best protect your clients for it. GuardDog's got some really cool stuff and some really cool AI that is supposed to help eliminate a lot of those problems. How do you go about pitching or managing the cybersecurity aspect of your clients' systems? Is that something that you even touch on, or is it something that you hands off on?
We don't even discuss it. It's not a subject. It's not a question my clients ask me. It's not even something that we think about. We put in a fairly solid router firewall. We make sure not to leave ports open, and that's kind of the end of us thinking about it. And so far, it's never been an issue. Not to say that we shouldn't be thinking about it. Maybe we should. Maybe it will be an issue eventually. But so far, never even a conversation.
So do you not talk about it from the standpoint of it's value add? We're going to do it no matter what, so there's no point in having the discussion, or because you don't want to get into the rabbit hole that can be cybersecurity?
It's basically it has never been an issue where we've had a system under attack or we've had any of those issues. So it's just not something that we think about. We put in a solid router. There's no yearly fee to it. And so it's not something that affects our system performance. It's not something that adds functionality for us. And that's why it hasn't really come up.
All right. Katie, when you follow this, when you see this, there are people or voices within the channel who argue that we should be touting this and promoting this dramatically with every client everywhere. And not to fearmonger, but kind of fearmonger and do the like, you need to be protected. Did you not see that baby monitor got hacked 3 weeks ago and that Tesla got hacked? Like, all that stuff, right? And it always pops up in the news that, oh, these people are chiming in and talking to your child on their Alexa in their room. Or do you take the approach of, recommending something like guardDog or any of the other firewall or intrusion protection products out there and kind of, I don't want to say wipe your hands of it, but just offer a solution that you don't directly manage and you don't necessarily directly touch? How do you show the value in there? Is there value in showing that?
So, yeah, I think there's great value in that. I think that I say that confidently though, because I know at my core the type of person that I am and the type of transparency that I want to have in all of my interactions, whether it's with a client or on a personal basis. But I think the bigger thing is, I think ethically, the integration community really should be making this part of the conversation, whether they are the resource or facilitating the resource or the installation. Not my point. But I think having the conversation, just presenting the potential hazards, risks, and inviting a conversation, pros and cons, allowing the homeowner to make their decision and sign off on it. So that there is no further conversation, no further resource waste on it, unless they agree and they want to have something done. I look at that, then, they sign off, fine, then you no further obligation. But if you've inspired them, RMR. And why not continue to be the resource? That's just kind of my take. I am not a fan of integrators who take the contractor type of mentality, get out, get paid, and don't go back unless we have to. And Mosey, no offense and not putting you guys in that whatsoever, just in case you were beginning to think that's where I was going. Quite the opposite. But, I just think that, it's kind of it's a bit of an ethical thing. But I just look at our industry and go, if we don't continue to evolve and continue to expand our service offering, the future for us may be much smaller than any of us would like to admit. And so, this is, for me, is kind of one of those gateway elements that we really should be there. But I'm not in integration, so that's the basis of my of my conversation here. It's not the reality of being in the trenches.
Do you guys have any experience with your customers or clients having intrusion issues? You do?
Yep. Oh yeah, yeah. We had, and now on the resi side only once, on the small commercial and mid-sized commercial a couple of times, and it can be really bad. And I'm going to preface that with one of the commercial projects, we had the sign off from the client where they declined high quality intrusion protection. And on two of the other major ones where we had major issues, not only did they ask for it and get supplied it, they had legitimate top notch firewall intrusion protection stuff, and they still got hammered, and it still took 3 to 4 weeks to get it cleaned up and cleaned out and I'm not going to tell you how much guardDog costs, but if you go look it up yourself, not you, but anybody listening, it's not super cheap. It's not super expensive. This was significantly higher. This was in the multiple thousands a month in fees to maintain, and they still got hammered, which has been one of my, I was thinking before you asked that question that I really need to get a lawyer on here who deals in IP. And I know one I might reach out to, because my concern has always been, if you sell ADT or any security system like that, right? They give you that contract that states that they're not liable for literally anything. It doesn't matter. You pay your $40 a month. Doesn't matter if you get robbed. They're not liable. You go and get anything else, right? Ain't nobody liable for anything. You go to Comcast or Infinity or Xfinity or whoever it is in where you are and get your router from them. They're not liable for anything that happens to you. We as a community have kind of tried to take the torch of internet security and cybersecurity, not knowing the risks of taking said torch. And we're going to have to do that. Mitchell, make a note. We're going to try and figure that one out. Because that is my concern. And I love the idea of guardDog and the idea of outsourcing that stress to another company so that if something happens, it's guardDog's issue. It's not mine. All right, let's leave it there before I get into any more trouble or expose myself to a lawsuit from anyone.
Yeah,
thanks,
let's do that.
Mosey, if people want to connect with you, connect with Backstage AV, follow you for your awesome rack building, where can they go and do that?
Yeah, we're on Instagram as Backstage AV, one word. And I'm on Facebook and a lot of the forums just as Mosey Levy. You'll see me out there.
Yes, you will. And seriously, if you want to see how to build a rack properly, go check his stuff out. It's literally artwork.
Thank you, Matt.
Katie, if people want to connect with you, learn more about KMB Communications, where can they do that?
Yep, so KMB Communications pretty much on all the platforms, or KMB Comms, you'll find us there. And then with me, Katie McGregor Bennett, I'm Katye. That's how you know you found the right me. And likewise, all the platforms you find me on. You search, you shall find.
Excellent. Thank you again. Thanks you all for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can hit me up on Twitter at Matt D. Scott and pretty much every other social platform. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.